on the Word with Les and Tracy King. Now we're continuing our study on the scattered seed, and we're looking at the parable of the farmer who sowed good seed in his field, yet he had weeds appear in his field along with the wheat.
That's right. Now our scripture is in Matthew chapter 13, verse 27. It says the following: The owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from?"
Now, we see this even today when unbelievers question the existence of a God because of the evil that exists in the world.
That's right. They think that the world should be free of sin and evil because if there's a loving God and he exists, he would wipe out all the evil that is out there, roaming around. So they actually refuse to believe that there's a God, based on that very premise. They want God to actually be a loving God, make everything perfect, and if things aren't perfect, then there is no God. And so they use this kind of carnal knowledge and logic to try to justify the existence of God here.
That is true. Now, in our parable, we see that the world is the field and the wheat are God's people, and the weeds are the people who belong to the evil one.
That's right. God sowed good seed in the earth, and the source of the bad seed is either Satan, or I think that we need to really bring this up, is the evil of mankind giving in to temptation and deciding to follow the ways of the evil one here.
That's exactly right. That's all around.
Yeah.
Now this brings us to our first biblical thought today, and that's, are you a puller of weeds or grafter for wheat?
Yeah.
Now in Matthew chapter 13, verse 28, we read, "An enemy did this," he replied. "The servants asked him, 'Do you want us to go and pull them up?'"
That's right. Now, as we look at our parable about the weeds and the wheat growing together, we see the servants ask the master quickly if they should go pull the weeds from around the wheat, because they want to fix this problem. They want to get rid of evil very quickly here.
No kidding. Now, I think this is a natural response to Satan's work. I mean, we want to quickly eliminate the evil around us.
Right. Now, we're going to take a look at a scripture from Paul, because he reminds us that at one time we were all weeds, or we were unnatural branches in the earth that eventually become grafted in. And this is in Romans chapter 11, verse 17. It says, "But as some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive branch, were grafted in among them, and then became a partaker with them in the richness of the olive tree." And so Paul is telling us here, we better remember something. We better remember that at one time we were all grafted in.
Remember where we came from,
so that's right. We better not get too uppity about this whole thing. God's got it under control, right?
The Apostle Paul explaining to the Romans that they were grafted into the faith that was once only for natural-born Jews.
That's right. Very quickly we can see the world in terms of us and them, with them becoming the enemy very quickly in our minds, and I think that can be kind of poison. It can be yeast in our hearts towards those who may need Jesus.
We should be very careful of this common trap of us and them, and remember that we were once the enemies of God also.
Right, and the Apostle Paul goes on to say in verse 18, "Do not be arrogant towards the branches, but if you are arrogant, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root that supports you."
I love that. Now, we need to be the servants that are patient with the weeds in this world. And remember that we were all once weeds, right?
That's right. And I think that's a very important thing for us to keep in mind as we try to be good stalks of wheat, is that we were once all weeds, and we need to remember what it was like to be that way, what it was like to be blind and not living in the light with Jesus.
That's right.
All right, we're going to go on to our next biblical thought, and that is, it is good for the bad and the good to grow together. And in Mark chapter 13, verse 29, it says the following: "No," he answered, "because while you are pulling the weeds, you will uproot the wheat with them."
That's right. This is a tough concept to grasp. I mean, why would God's people be damaged by the removal of the evil people in the world? Now, I think we can get so focused on having everyone be like us that we want them all removed from the world, the ones that are not like us.
That's right. I think this is even, considering us as Christians, we seem to segregate ourselves from each other into groups just so we can be around people who are like us. And this is kind of an interesting verse that shows us that we're all somehow connected to the rest of mankind in some unique way, and it's not just connected to other Christians, but it's also connected to unbelievers. So this, I think, is pretty cool for us to look at and understand what Jesus is saying. Don't pull the bad weeds yet, because it's going to hurt the good. It's going to hurt the wheat at this point.
Now, we can begin to see that the temptation and struggles in this life are directly connected to our development as Christians.
Right.
And even the unbelievers in this world are a critical component in our Christian development.
That's right. In some cases, these individuals are people who don't know Jesus, and even they might be family members, that possibly that we love so much that they motivate us to live boldly Christian lives so that we can show them who our Jesus is.
Now let's move on to our next biblical thought, and that's good wheat will die quickly. And then we're reading in Matthew chapter 13, verse 30. It says, "Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and then tie them into bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring them into my barn."
That's right. The Bible uses many examples about the end times, and here we see the example entail gathering wheat and weeds for a harvest.
That's right. As Christians, we can sometimes become concerned with being harvesters, but
Right.
the Bible is clear that God will harvest the earth.
That's right. We just need to be concerned about being good stalks of wheat.
That's
The
right.
fruit in our lives is when those who are weeds see our fruit, and then they desire to be grafted in, and they want to
That's right.
become a part of the crop that belongs to Jesus.
It's our walk, not our talk.
That's right. It's our walk, not our stalk. Now it's something like that, right?
Something like that. Now here's how Jesus says we should live as kernels of wheat in John chapter 12, verse 24. He says, "Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds."
That's right. The weeds in the world will never know who Jesus is unless the wheat falls to the ground and dies. And this means dying daily for us, everyone. Not just waiting until the end of the age or until the harvest time to die. This means we need to get up. We need to get up each day
To die.
and die so that others may be able to see
Right.
our Jesus. Hey, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we do invite you to come visit us at awordontheword.tv. And remember, till our next show, go serve the King by serving others.
Thank you for joining Les and Tracy King for A Word on the Word. Visit awordontheword.tv to receive their latest audio or video broadcast. A Word on the Word is sponsored by First Century Ministry